The Drunken Smasher does heavy damage in an AoE and completely stomps the competition. It's a build that you can make pretty early on as soon as you get to Act 2, and scales even better into Act 3. You can use any type of class that uses a two-hander to build this. However, my personal favorite is the OathBreaker Paladin, so let's go ahead and break this down. So what's really great about the Drunken Smasher build is the fact that it can be used with any class that can use a two-handed weapon. This is going to range from barbarians, fighters, paladins, rangers, bards depending on how you subclass, clerics depending on how you subclass, warlocks if you use Pact of the Blade. As long as you can use a two-handed weapon, you can actually make this build because it's solely gear dependent. Some builds are going to work better than others depending on how you play it, and I will showcase how I would build this for endgame. But this build in the beginning is something you can make as soon as you get to Act 2. All you got to do is just get a certain weapon and then you'll be set. For myself personally, I will be showcasing the beginning of this as a normal paladin, and then at endgame I will showcase what I would normally do as an Oathbreaker paladin. So I'm going to start out with Oath of Vengeance here, and we'll go through the ability scores. I am going to have some gear that is going to get replaced in Act 3, but we'll talk about that in a minute. When it comes to your gear scores here, feel free to change things around if you would like. Obviously, if you don't play a paladin and you do this with a cleric, for example, you don't need charisma, you would want wisdom instead, since they use wisdom as their spellcasting modifier. Barbarians, for example, they can't cast spells at all, so you wouldn't really need charisma per se, but it's going to be up to you and how you want to build it. These are my stats now, and again, I will showcase Act 3 later on in the video. So, because I am a paladin, I do have persuasion here just to get my checks a little bit better. I chose insight, but feel free to pick whatever else you want. It's going to be up to you. Okay, paladins at level 2, you get a fighting style. Because my gear is actually a little low when it comes to AC for this act because of a chest piece I'm using, I'm actually going to be choosing defense over great weapon fighting, but feel free to take great weapon fighting if you would like in order to have more rerolls for your attacks. Prepared spells, I mean, honestly, pick whatever you want. I do want to say a shout out to Thunderous Smite. This is going to be really useful for the way our gear is going to interact. And if you do want something like Bless on yourself or anything like that, feel free to get that on there. Shield of Faith could also be pretty useful considering your AC isn't the best as this build and gets better as you just get better gear. Alright, Paladin level 3 is pretty cool because you get some more spells. This is when you get some more class features. All paladins at level 3 become immune to diseases, which is pretty nice, and you get some specific oath spells as well. Alright, for my first feat, if you use the Hag's Hair, you could get your strength maxed out now. I am not using the Hag's Hair, so I don't have maxed out strength, but that's okay because I can now get my charisma to 16 and my strength to 18, which is nice, and using a potion, I can then get my strength to 20. And I did want to showcase this. You can see I'm at 17 strength. I'm going to use this. It's going to bump me up to 19. So once I get that ASI at level 4, this will be 20 and my charisma will be 16. And you get that potion I just used from having Asterion, Bite, Araj, and Moonrise Towers. Okay, Paladin level 5. You get your extra attack. You get some more spells. Oath spells specifically for the Vengeance is nice because you get Misty Step as a spell, and you get Hold Person, which is really great as well. Very useful. Okay, Paladin level 6. This is when you get your Aura here. Aura of Protection is amazing. This gives you and allies within 10 feet a bonus to saving throws equal to your Charisma modifier. My Charisma is 16, so now this is going to be +3. Paladin level 7, for my subclass feature here, I get Relentless Avenger. Basically, anytime I hit with an opportunity attack, On my next turn, my movement is increased by 15 feet, which is nice. And Paladin level 8, you get your second feat here. You could go ability improvement. Because I use a strength potion, my strength is already at 20. So if I wanted more charisma, constitution, dexterity, I could do that. Because the weapon you will be using is a two-handed weapon, we're going with Great Weapon Master instead. Everyone knows how great this is. Whenever you land a crit or kill a target, you can use another attack as a bonus action. And the ability is toggleable. You can toggle it off if you don't want the -5 penalty to your attack rolls. But if you do have that -5 penalty to your attack rolls, you get plus 10 damage as well. And Paladin level 9 is where I'm going to end the first part of this video, and we'll talk about the rest of it for endgame in a moment, because I do want to showcase this for people that want to follow this build earlier on. So this is when you should get some new spells and stuff, so feel free to mess around with the spells that you want to use for yourself personally. Crusader's Mantle is pretty cool, but it is concentration. Elemental Weapon you don't even need. I'm going to showcase a way to work around this, which is just so much better. When it comes to all these spells, really just put whatever you think is going to be good for you. Warden of Vitality is pretty cool. Again, pick whatever you think is going to be best for you and your teammates. Okay, so this build is extremely gear dependent, and you can see I only have 18 AC, which is okay because I could easily replace my chest piece if I didn't need it with something else, and we'll talk about that in a moment. So the main thing, the way this works, is you have the weapon called the Punch Drunk Bastard. And it has a cool effect that when you are drunk, you have advantage on your attack rolls. So whenever you attack, not only will you have advantage, so the game will roll 2 dices and it will take the higher dice for its roll, but each attack deals 1d4 thunder damage in an AoE. So we're going to buff this up a little bit to be even better. For those who don't know, there is a weapon called the Drakethroat Glaive you can get inside Moonrise Towers from Moonglow. She sells it. I'm going to drop my weapon on the floor right there. I'm going to equip this here. I'm going to use my elemental weapon, and I'm going to put lightning damage on it. Right there. And there's a reason we're doing that we'll talk about in a moment, but let's go ahead and pick that up. So now you can see my weapon here, not only does it get another +1 enchant to its attack rolls and damage, but it also has the +1d4 lightning damage as well. So now when I attack with this weapon, it has a weapon enchant of +2. If I'm drunk, it will do the AoE thunder damage and will also do lightning damage. The reason why that's important is because of the gloves I'm using. I'm using the Gloves of Belligerent Skies. Whenever I deal thunder damage, lightning damage, or radiant damage, I inflict 2 turns of reverberation. Reverberation. Enemies have a -1 penalty to strength, dexterity, and constitution saving throws, stacking up to turns remaining up to 7. But at 5 stacks, they take 1d4 damage and can possibly fall prone. Really, really powerful. And this is kind of how the build synergizes together. The reason I wanted to showcase Paladins is because of your Divine Smite. You have your reactions here. If you take a look, you can put all your reactions. That way, after every single hit, I can go ahead and react and have the game do a Divine Smite. The weapon specifically also has a built-in reaction called Tenacity. If I miss, I can do damage anyway, which is pretty cool. So other gear that I'm going to be using, so regardless of whether you're a paladin or not, you will be doing at least 2 of these 3 elements, thunder from your weapon and lightning from the weapon, doing 2 stacks of reverberation. But it gets a little bit better, and here's why we're going to talk about it. The boots are really going to be up to you. I like the Nightwalkers just because it gives you so many bonuses. Can't be webbed, entangled, ensnared, and can't be slipped on grease or ice. It gives you Misty Step as a free spell without a spell slot. If you don't use these, feel free to mess around with any other pair of boots you think are going to be really good for you and your team. I just find these to be the best pair of boots that I like for this build. The neck piece will be replaced in Act 3, but for Acts 1 and 2, I just use the Amulet and Misty Step, another free Misty Step. If I don't use this, I would end up going with the Amulet here to basically once per long rest. When I crit, I can paralyze the target for 2 turns. Really great for burst, since paralyzed targets would have 100% chance to be crit if you're within a short range. The rings I'm using, the Coruscation ring is great because whenever I deal spell damage, I create a radiant orb, which is nice. Paladins have Divine Smite, really fantastic. Spell damage, more radiant orbs. You have the Kalos Glow Ring. I deal additional 2 points of radiant damage against illuminated targets. So as long as you have a light source around the target you're attacking, you will not only do the extra thunder, lightning, but you'll do radiant damage as well, getting all 3 elements from the gloves to stack up for really big time debuffs on the enemy. This is really, really strong. On top of that, I do have the luminous armor. Whenever I deal radiant damage, I cause a radiation shockwave, putting radiant orbs on enemies in a little cone in front of me. My cape, I just did the Cloak of Protection because it gives me +1 to my AC and saving throws, which is really nice. And paladins themselves, because of your aura of protection, that's just even more saving throws on top of myself and my allies. Really, really strong, which is nice. When it comes to the helm's going to really dictate depending on what class you play. I like the Arcane Synergy helm because my charisma 16. Anytime I attack an enemy and put a debuff on them, which is going to happen all the time for my gloves, they will get Arcane Synergy. Or I will get Arcane Synergy, which gives me damage equal to my spellcasting modifier. So my charisma is at 16, it's going to be +3 to all my attacks. If you're using this on like a barbarian, for example, you wouldn't want to use this, you would want to use a different type of helm. Feel free to pick what you want. Alright, so if you made it to this part of the video, this is for Act 3 and how I would make this for endgame. Specifically, before you break your oath, you definitely want to make sure you respec your paladin, because there are going to be some things that changed. And if you already broke your oath and you want to redo your stats, you would have to renew your oath and then break it again. So for me, I am just reclassing into Devotion because it's one of the easiest oaths to break in the game. Ability score is going to be slightly different. So you can see I have 16 charisma now base without any ability score improvement. I did dip into wisdom to get rid of some things in order to do that. My constitution is 14, my dex is only 10, and strength is 17. So just like before, we are going to get a feat to increase some things, and we'll go ahead and talk about that after I break my oath on this character. And for those who want an easy way to break your oath, in Act 3 in Rivington right here, there'll be a bunch of like refugees that have really, really low HP. Even though I'm level 1 right now and on Tactician, I should be able to basically one-shot these guys. So what you can end up doing then is go ahead and use your potion of invisibility, go invisible, enter turn-based mode, and then go ahead and just slaughter somebody, like this guy, for example. And you can see it said Oath Broken, so now when I return back to camp, I will have the option to be an Oathbreaker. And for becoming an Oathbreaker, one of the first things you get is going to be Spiteful Suffering, which is a channel oath ability. The target takes necrotic damage each turn and your attack rolls have advantage. You're rarely ever going to use this because the weapon you use will automatically have advantage if you're drunk. Alright, so we're going to go down to the levels super quick as an Oathbreaker. Very little has changed except for a few things. You are going to be changing chest pieces, so if you did want to take great weapon fighting now, feel free to do that. If not, get with defense. I'm going to great weapon fighting just because even though the rerolls only happen if you roll a 1 or a 2, it is still nice to have that. And the way we're building this is going to be for optimal damage and defense at the same time, so you don't necessarily need the defense unless you really want to have even more AC. Your prepared spells and stuff like that, for the most part, are all going to be the same. We'll talk about the differences in a moment. Just like a regular paladin, level 3, you become immune to diseases, but you do have some new spells now. You have the Inflict Wound spell. You have to use it in melee. Basically, it just does a lot of necrotic damage to the enemy. You have Hellish Rebuke, which is a reaction. You can use this on your turn when someone attacks you to then do fire damage to the enemy. You have some other things. You have some more Channel Oath things that are actually pretty useful. Dreadful Aspect is an AoE fear, which is nice because the fear, if you do actually get it on the enemy, if they are feared, they have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. So it's kind of like a pseudo CC. And you have Control Undead. This is going to mainly be useful for Act 2 if you decide to be an Oathbreaker in Act 2, because you'll have the option to control Undead. There are some Undead in Act 3, but not as many as Act 2. Okay, so before we chose ability improvement here, we are not going to be doing this time. You can if you want. If you would prefer to do ability improvement over what I'm doing, feel free. Because I want this build to be tanky while at the same time doing great damage, we're taking Heavy Armor Master. And if you saw how my Frost Knight build worked in another video, you'll know how powerful this is. +1 to your strength, and it reduces all non-magical damage by 3, which is really, really strong because this will stack with other things. Again, Paladin level 5, extra attack, fantastic. But you also gain the Darkness spell now, and if you do use the ring to make you immune to blindness, this is great offensively and defensively. You also have Crown of Madness. I don't use this all that often, but it is something you can use that in combination with a certain ring can be very powerful, and we'll talk about that shortly. Paladin level 6, just like the other Paladins, you get Aura of Protection. Okay, Paladin level 7, this is where things are going to change a little bit. So you get Aura of Hate now. So this is equal to your Charisma modifier. Because my Charisma is 16, this will increase the damage of myself by an additional 3, because my modifier is +3. It says it also affects nearby fiends and undead, but that's only with melee weapons, and all the undead you summon don't have melee weapons. So this will only really affect you, unfortunately. Alright, so Paladin 8, you get another feat here. So you can either choose to go with ability improvement. Your strength, we're going to get to max at 20 using the potion that we talked about earlier. But if you do use that potion in combination with this, you'll be at 22 strength. You could go with Charisma or Great Weapon Master. Definitely useful. Paladin level 9, so for your Oath spells, you get Animate Undead, which is nice, because now you can have your little zombie friends along with you. You get Bestow Curse if you did want to use that, and of course you get all the other spells just like before. Paladin level 10, you gain Aura of Courage. You and nearby allies can't be frightened, so another really great thing to have for you and your friends. Paladin level 11, all paladins get this. You get Improved Divine Smite, so whenever you make a melee attack, it deals additional 1d8 radiant damage. So no matter what, you're doing radiant and thunder damage on top of lightning as well if you use the trick we talked about earlier. Paladin level 12, you get your final feat, Pure Class Paladin. You have a couple of options you can go with. Do you want ability improvement? Maybe get your HP up because you only have 100 HP. You could do that. It's going to bump it up to 124. A pretty big difference. 24 HP is nothing to scoff at. Do you need it necessarily? That's going to be up to you. If you want more damage, go with Charisma, because if you remember, your Aura of Hate is based off of your Charisma modifier, so this will give you even more. It's going to be up to you and what you do here. If you want more initiative, Alert's really nice. Going to give you +5 initiative, and you can't be surprised. There's a lot you can choose here, so pick what you think is going to be best for you and your friends. At this point in time in the game, with how often I played and the type of gear we're going to talk about, I don't really think you need Constitution all that much. You could go with Charisma. Pick what you want for you and your team. I will have a showcase of some gear that we're going to talk about, so maybe that will influence your decision. For me personally, I'm going with Charisma. I want the extra damage. Okay, so looking at this, you can see for the most part, our gear is very similar, but some pieces have changed. So in Act 3, you can get the Hellrider Longbow. This will give you +3 bonus to your initiative rolls and have advantage on perception ability checks. This is nice because this is just going to give you +3 initiative, which will help mitigate the only 10 dex here, which is why I use it. Everything else is pretty much the same though. The only difference is the chest piece we're using. I have the Reaper's Embrace. This is just great. All incoming damage is reduced by 2. This stacks with Heavy Armor Master, so all melee damage is going to be reduced by 5. It gives you a cantrip that's a bonus action called Howl of the Dead, which I think as an Oathbreaker Paladin is just fitting. It also has a passive you can put on and off right here, Reaper right here. You can read it. Basically, you have disadvantage on dexterity saving throws, but you can't be moved against your will against any spell or action. This is nice because with your Aura of Wisdom, you have so much saving throws, it's going to be unreal. So if I take a look at my Paladin stuff, let's go ahead and put all my auras on. So I got my Aura of Courage. Can't be feared. I got my Aura of Hate. So now you can see I do additional +4 damage. There you go. And real quick, I'm going to put it in turn-based mode. You can see I am using the Arcane Synergy Helm. Because my spellcasting modifier is 18, this is +4. So realistically, as an Oathbreaker, I get 8 additional damage because of this in combination with Aura Hate and my helm. Really, really powerful. But it doesn't stop there. I also have Aura Protection, giving me +4 bonus to all my saving throws. And because I am using the Cloak of Protection, I get another +1 to my saving throws. I'm pretty tanky. Despite only having 100 HP, I'm really tanky. And if I wanted to turn myself into a super tank, Damon, if you did have the Tiefling survive in Act 3, sells a chest piece called the Armor of Persistence. This is hands down the best chest piece in the game if you want to be super tanky. You can see by equipping this, I now have Blade Ward, so all physical damage is reduced by 50%. On top of reducing all incoming damage by 2. Really, really strong. On top of Heavy Armor Master. So physical damage ain't doing shit. And then it also gives you resistance, which just gives you a 1d4 bonus to saving throws. On top of my Aura of Protection. So another +4 to my saving throws. If you equip this chest piece, it turns it into easy mode. The game is just way too easy with this chest piece. Even on Tactician, it's that strong. So because of that, I do like to go with the Reaper's Embrace. I just think it looks cooler. But feel free to use the other one if you want it for gameplay wise. Now, when it comes to my rings, I did change things a little bit. I did have the Ring of Absolute Force here. I just find having the additional thunder damage is nice. Plus the additional Thunder Wave spell is pretty cool because that way I can knock people back if I really want to. I have the Ring of Spiteful Thunder you could also use whenever you deal thunder damage against reverberating creatures, which will happen all the time from our gloves. They have a chance to be dazed, and if they're dazed, they have disadvantage on wisdom saving throws and they can't take your reactions, which is really cool. But if you didn't want to use this, there are some other pieces that you can go with. Instead of using the Ring of Absolute Force, if you want even more radiant damage, of course, you could add the Coruscation Ring in combination with the Glow Ring. Very, very powerful, even into endgame. And this is really nice, especially if you have even less HP, which at this point you shouldn't. But just having all the radiant orbs on the enemy is really nice. So that's one way you could do it. Another thing, if you do choose to get the legendary trident, there is a ring you can get called the Band of Mystic Scoundrel. After hitting a creature with a weapon attack, you can cast an illusion or enchantment spell as a bonus action. And that's really useful because you actually have some spells you can use. So if you go over your spell list, let's take a look real quick. So Crown of Madness is an enchantment spell. So you can use this as a bonus action if you have that ring, which is really nice. You have your Command. This is also an enchantment spell. Also, another really nice spell you could have. Those are like the main 2, you don't have Hold Person anymore. So if you were still the other Paladin Oath that does have it, that is also an enchantment spell you could use as a bonus action for even more CC. And if you didn't want to use the Cloak of Protection, that vendor I talked about earlier that sells the Hellrider Longbow also sells the Nymph Cloak, which has Dominate Person, which is also an enchantment spell, so you could use that as a bonus action as well if you use the Mystic Scoundrel Ring. Of course, if you don't want to worry about that and you just want all damage as much as possible, then go ahead and feel free to put on something else. It's going to be up to you. So let's go ahead and showcase the damage with this now in Act 3. And one final piece, the neck piece, is the Amulet of the Drunkard that you get in Act 3. This is nice. The healing is only at the start of your turn. It used to be every round, and I guess they nerfed it in the latest patch. But while you're drunk, the duration of it is increased by 5 rounds. So this is a must-have as soon as you get to Act 3. And what's great is everything I showcased right now, you can get within the first hour of Act 3. On this file, I have nothing done inside Act 3 whatsoever. All I did is go around and just go to the vendors that I needed to get the items, which is really great. And you can see I have 18 strength. As mentioned, we used our potion, and guess what? We're at 20. Alright, let's check out that combat now. Alright, so I already gave myself the pre-buff of my alcohol, and I used a potion of speed. You can see I have the Tippler's Rage buff. I'm about to do some big time damage to these guys, and it's going to be really great. I don't have Arcane Synergy, which is interesting, because normally Arcane Synergy would proc right away. It's alright, because it's about to happen shortly when I attack this lady up here. And I'm actually going to do Thunderous Smite just to add even more damage. Make sure all your reactions are set properly. If not, you will accidentally use the incorrect stuff. And you definitely want to make sure your reactions are set up correctly so you don't accidentally hit the wrong target or use a spell slot you don't want to. Yep, we are going to crit. That was a lot of damage. Let's go ahead and do a Hellish Rebuke rank 2 on that character. And you can see, because I have the ring right here that does a Radiant Orb, whenever I do a spell, the Hellish Rebuke puts a spell on the target, which is really cool. Now, Reverberation, I mean, she's dead. How much damage did I even do to her? I didn't even get to really check. God dang, it's a lot of damage, guys. You do so much damage, and I didn't even like crit with my Divine Smite, because I could have added the Divine Smite crit to that as well. Jeez, it's so fun. Basically, you just destroy people with the build. I'm not sure how to say it any other way, so I'm gonna come up, attack you. I don't even need the Divine Smite. She's already dead. So you can see I just had the thunder damage, radiant damage, thunder damage, radiant damage, plus all the regular damage as well. Like, it's super, super strong. I don't like this guy in the back, so I'm going to come up here to attack him. I don't want him hitting me with the bow from a ranged. And he's gone. Let's go ahead and use my bonus action to kill this guy. And he's still alive, so I'm going to use a rank 2 Divine Smite. Oh, did he really survive at 1 HP? He did. That's unfortunate. That's okay. We'll attack his friend instead. So we'll use rank 1. He's dead. And you can see just how strong this build is. Like, he just smack people and they just blow up. The downside is your Divine Smites, you don't want to waste them because you only have a limited amount. So definitely make sure you're not constantly spamming them if you don't need to. And because it hit me, let's go ahead and get Hellish Rebuke on him. Thank you. Thank you for the Radiant Orb. Alright, and now it's my turn, so now I attack. Sorry, friend. Oh, I missed. Wow, that's unfortunate. I wonder why this didn't proc. I have it set up to where it should do it. That's interesting. Normally it would hit him if I missed. Well, let's hit this guy instead. So he's gone. And this guy, just because I want to showcase it, we're going to let my zombies kill you. Spawn all them up. And that's from the Dance Macrobee thing, which I'm sure by now everyone knows how to get that with the codex. But if I really wanted to, I could have also just cast Create Dead off of one of the dead bodies here too. But yeah, that's the build, everybody. I mean, it's pretty fun. I've been enjoying the heck out of it. With a Paladin especially, because at level 11, you get the extra Divine Smite damage, which is nice. So it's nice. Like, if you take a look at the attack, 1d8, 1d4, and then if I use my alcohol in order to get my buff going, I also get the Tippler's Rage as well. So it's really, really strong. You can definitely optimize this for even more damage if you really wanted to. One way you could do that is to use the Elixir Hill Giant Strength, put all your points into Charisma, and things like that. But if you really wanted to do that, that's up to you. I'm not a big fan of spamming the elixirs anyway. But yeah, that's the build, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed. It was a lot of fun. This weapon is super strong. It's so much more strong than I initially anticipated. And what's really great is if you have someone else in your party that can cast like Create Water, it gets even more fun. Anyway, I'm Ronan. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.